hope I'm audible and the screen is visible. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
We were doing sums and ratio analysis, and I had done 6 sums. We had to start with the remaining totally 13 sums. So we'll do the 7th sum onwards today. From the following balance sheet of D Limited, calculate current ratio, liquid ratio, debt equity ratio, and fixed asset ratio. So we'll first start with the current ratio. Current ratio, you all might be remembering the formula. It is current assets divided by current liability. Current ratio is equals to current assets. If you see on the asset side, goodwill and fixed assets you have to leave. From stock, there is current assets. So stock is current asset 50,000 plus debtors. Stock is 40,000 plus debtors 50,000 plus loans and advances 30,000 plus cash 20,000. So these are the current assets divided by current liabilities. You have to leave till secured loans because they are long-term liabilities, equity reserves, P&L and secured loans. Creditors 40,000 is your current liability. And provision for taxes 30,000. Current ratio is equals to this total the current assets 90, 1 lakh 20, 1 lakh 40 divided by 70. 1 lakh 40 divided by 70, I think we get 2. 2:1 is the current ratio. Next, they have asked to do the liquid ratio. Liquid ratio is equals to quick assets or liquid assets divided by current liabilities minus bank overdraft if there is any. If not, we are not going to do that. So liquid ratio is equals to current assets. We should not take stock and prepaid expenses. So current assets except stock and prepaid expenses will take everything. So stock 40,000 I'm not taking. 50,000 debtors plus 30,000 loans and advances plus cash 20,000 divided by current liabilities, that is creditors and provisions. We can take both 40 plus 30. There is no bank overdraft, so there is no need to, nor we have taken it, so there is no need to even minus it. So if you solve, you will get 1.43:1. This is liquid ratio formula. Remember, when we do ratio analysis, it's very, very important to remember the formulas. If you don't know the formulas, you'll not be able to put in the information and get the answers. And for formulas also, you have marks. So if they're asking 5 ratios for 10 marks, 1 mark is for formula and maybe 1 mark is for your answer. Like that, 2 marks per question. So even if you have written the ratio formula correctly, that will carry marks. The next is the debt equity ratio. Now this ratio itself tells you the formula. They are asking you to divide debt by equity because they want to know the debt and equity proportion in that particular firm. So how much was the borrowings compared to the equity? So the formula for debt equity ratio is long-term debts. We're only taking the long-term loans divided by shareholders fund. What are shareholders funds? Shareholders funds include shareholders fund is equals to equity share capital plus reserves and surplus plus profit or loss account if they have given. All these put together, we get the shareholders funds. Everything related to shareholders, that is reserves that go to shareholders, profit that goes to shareholders, and the capital. So the debt equity ratio is equals to long-term debt. Now in the question, if you see, there's only one long-term debt, that is secured loans. Debt means loan. So either you borrow from public through debentures or you take bank loans. So long term there is only one, that is 80,000 secured loans. So we'll do 80,000 divided by shareholders funds is equity capital, which is 1,50,000 plus reserves, that is 40,000 plus the profit and loss account, that is profit that is earned by the shareholder, 60,000. So that totally is the value of equity. So when we do 80,000 divided by shareholders funds, we get 0.32. Divided at 0.32 is to 1. That means for every 1 rupee equity capital or for every 1 rupee shareholders money or contribution, we have 32 paise loan. So the company has more of their own capital. 1 rupee if they are putting of their own capital, they are borrowing 32 paise. So the debt equity ratio, the debt proportion is less as compared to the equity proportion is more. The last ratio that they have asked is the fixed asset ratio. Formula for fixed asset ratio is net sales divided by net fixed assets or you can also say fixed assets divided by total assets. It depends on what data we have and which formula we are going to use. Or fixed assets divided by total assets. If we have sales data, we use net sales divided by net fixed assets because usually as compared to sales, how much is my fixed assets, that is very important to know. But if there is no sales data, then we'll do fixed assets by total assets to get to know what is the fixed asset ratio. So here in the problem, we have only the balance sheet. We don't have the, this is not 40,000, it's 4 lakh. In the problem, we don't have the profit and loss account and the sales value. So we'll use the second formula, that is fixed assets divided by total assets. So if we look at the fixed assets, they have given you as 2,10,000. We'll take only that because they've mentioned clearly in the problem fixed assets is 2,10,000. Asset ratio equals to fixed assets 2,10,000 divided by, I'm using the second formula, that is fixed asset divided by total assets because the sales value is missing. So divided by 4 lakh. Actually, we should be taking goodwill also because that's also fixed asset only, but it's just intangible in nature. So we'll add goodwill also. Goodwill is 50,000. So 2,10,000 fixed asset plus goodwill 50,000. You get 2,60,000 divided by 4 lakh. See how much, anybody can tell me how much you get? Fixed asset ratio is equals to 260 divided by 4 lakh.
0.6, ma'am.
0.6. You can do into 100 and also find it in percent. So that will be equal to 60%. Or we can also write it as 0.6 is to 1. That is, for every 1 rupee total asset, 60 paise is the fixed assets. That way also it can be interpreted. So these are the 5 things that were asked in this particular question. We solved all the 5. Now the rest of the questions are not that many. The questions are small. They've asked hardly 1:1 ratio, so that those ratios you all can understand, because there are few ratios which are not there in the big problem. So I have also taken small sums where I can explain you a few individual ratios. Eighth problem asks you to find the price earning ratio. So let me give you the formula of that first. Price earning ratio is equals to price per share divided by earnings per share. So here we are trying to find out what is the market price as compared to the earning per share, and the price earning ratio, whatever answer we will get, will be basically in times. So I'm trying to find out how many times higher is the market price per share as compared to earning per share. So if my earning per share is 2 rupees and my market price is 10 rupees, then I will say my market price is 5 times higher than the earning per share. So the higher the PE ratio, the better, because as the company's earnings increase by that many times, the market price will also increase. So now we need these two information. If you see here, market price per equity share, we already have it, but we don't have the earning per share value. Instead, they've given us net profit after tax, they've given us preference dividend, and they've given number of equity shares. So first is we have to find the earning per share, because that is missing. Earning per share is equals to earnings available to equity shareholders. How to find earnings available to equity shareholders? I'll just show you net profit or EBIT, whatever is given. From that we minus interest, then we minus tax, because these are two things that we need to pay first. Then we minus preference dividend. After that, whatever remains, we call it as earnings available to equity shareholders. In the today morning session, I explained you that equity shareholders get the residual income or the remaining income. So whatever is the profit, first we pay interest to the debenture holders, then we pay taxes to government, then we pay preference dividend, then what remains, the remainder goes to equity capital. So earnings available to equity shareholders, we find like this, divided by number of shares. We'll get earning per share. If I do only this, I'll get the total earnings, but we want earning per share, so the total earnings divided by number of shares will give you the EPS. Okay, so we'll find EPS is equals to, they've given you net profit after tax, that means interest and tax is already paid. So net profit after tax is 1 lakh. So interest, tax already paid. What remains is preference dividend. They've given you preference dividend is 20,000. So from that 1 lakh will minus the preference dividend 20,000. We'll get the earnings available to equity shareholders divided by number of equity shares. So there are, this is not rupees 4,000, sorry. It is 4,000 shares, because we are talking about number of shares, not in amount. So divided by 4,000 shares, we'll get the EPS as 80,000 divided by 4,000, which comes to 20 rupees. So now we have market price
20.
Yeah, and we have EPS also. So we can find the PE ratio now. PE ratio is, I told you the formula is market price per share which is 100 rupees, divided by earning per share, which is 20 rupees. So 100 divided by 20, your P ratio will be 5 times. That means if you are earning 20 rupees, your market price will be 5 times higher than that. That is 100 rupees. If you are earning 10 rupees, your market price will be 5 times higher of that. That means 10 into 5, 50 rupees. If you are earning 30 rupees, market price will be 30 into 5, 150 rupees. So this PE ratio tells you how many times higher will be your market price if you know your EPS. And the better the PE ratio, the more you earn, the more your market price goes on increasing. So if they ask for PE ratio, this is the formula that we use: market price per share divided by earning per share. The next question, they are asking you to find the interest coverage ratio. Now, what is interest coverage ratio? Interest coverage ratio, we are trying to find out how much are we earning so that we can pay our interest fully. So here this ratio tells us that out of your earnings, how many times you will be able to pay your interest. So suppose I have to pay 10,000 rupees interest and my earnings are 1 lakh rupees. So I can say that I can pay interest 10 times out of my earnings, because I have 1 lakh earnings, which is 10 times more than what my interest is. So my interest coverage ratio can be 10 times. That means I have that much amount that I can pay this interest 10 times. So we are basically trying to find out whatever is the interest, how many, we are trying to compare the interest with the earnings to find out how many times more money that we have to pay the interest. So the formula for interest coverage ratio is net profit before interest and tax, or you can also say EBIT, or EBIT divided by interest on long-term loans. So interest coverage ratio, you can see here the operating profit of B Limited after charging interest on debentures and taxes rupees 50,000. The amount of interest charged is 10,000 and the provision for tax has been made for rupees 20,000. Calculate the interest coverage ratio. So we want profit before interest and tax, but they have given you profit after interest and tax. So if you read it, the operating profit of B Limited after charging interest on debentures and taxes 50,000. We want before. So if we have after value, if we add back interest and tax, I will get the value before interest and tax. So how I will find EBIT? I will take that net profit 50,000 and I'll add back interest and tax to it so that I can get the before interest and tax value of profit. So tax provision is 20,000 and interest is 10,000. If you add it back, your EBIT will be 80,000, which is before paying interest and tax, divided by interest on long-term loans, which is given as 10,000. So the amount of interest charged is 10,000. So if you solve this, you'll get the interest coverage ratio eight times. I'll mention here if you want what is all this. This is profit after interest and tax. We want before interest and tax, so I'm adding interest back to it and I'm adding tax back to it. So when I add back interest and tax, I'll get the profit before interest and tax. And once I get the before interest and tax, that is EBIT, I can divide it by the interest amount to find the interest coverage ratio. So this basically means I'm earning so much that I can pay the interest 8 times. So 10,000, 8 times I will be able to pay. The better the interest coverage ratio, the better the firm is performing, because if the firm cannot earn so much that it can pay its interest also, then that means the firm is very poor, or you can say into losses, or not even able to meet up its fixed expenses or fixed obligation of payment of interest. So it is good to have a higher interest coverage ratio. It proves that company can pay its interest fully, plus it will have profit remaining for other activities. So that was the 9th question. Let's do the 10th one. Next, they are asking you to calculate the debt service coverage ratio. Sorry, debt service coverage ratio. Formula will write down first. Net profit before interest and tax. Or you can also call it as EBIT divided by interest plus principal payment installment. Basically, it is EMI. If I add both of this, interest plus principal payment installment, it is the EMI. So debt service coverage ratio says only covering your interest payment is not important. You also need to pay back the loan in installments. So interest plus the repayment of loan installment, if you're able to cover both, that means you're servicing or you're covering the expenses of your debentures properly, or the expenses of your loans properly. So usually it is EBIT divided by EMI. EMI is equated monthly installments, or if you pay equated yearly installments, in which interest plus the repayment of the principal amount both will be there. Okay, so debt service coverage ratio is equals to net profit before interest and tax. It's given here. Net profit before interest and tax is 80,000. So 80,000 in the numerator divided by interest plus principal payment installment. So here interest, if you see, they have told 10% debentures of rupees 1,60,000. So interest is 10% on 1,60,000. We'll calculate it here separately first. Interest is equals to 1,60,000 into 10%, which comes to 16,000. So interest is 16,000 plus principal payment installment. So how are we going to repay this particular loan? They have said payable in 10 equal annual installments. So 1,60,000 is paid in 10 installments. So each installment will be right here, loan installment. $1,60,000, and we are going to pay it in 10 installments. So 1,60,000 divided by 10 installments, you'll get it as 16,000. So your interest is 16,000 and your loan repayment per year is 16,000. So if you're able to meet up both, that means you're earning so much that you can pay your interest plus your repayment installment. So debt service coverage ratio is equals to 80,000 divided by 16 plus 16 is 32,000. So 80,000 divided by 32,000, you get it as 2.5 times. That means I am able to repay my loan installment plus interest 2.5 times out of the profit that I have made this year. So my profit, out of my profit, 2.5 times I can pay the loan and the interest, the installment of the loan. So the difference between interest coverage ratio and debt service coverage ratio is, in case of interest coverage ratio, only interest payment, how many times you can do, that is taken care of. Whereas in case of debt service coverage ratio, not only the interest, but the repayment amount of the loan installment also needs to be considered. So that is the only difference. Otherwise, both are telling you how much profit you're earning to recover that particular interest or interest plus repayment. Now the next question is 11th problem, little bigger one. They've asked you around 7 ratios. So let's see how to do it. From the following statement of X Limited, for the year ending 31st March, you are required to calculate the following ratios: current quick operating ratio, stock turnover ratio, fixed asset turnover ratio, debtors turnover, and net profit to capital employed. So first let us start with the current ratio. Current ratio is equal to current assets divided by current liability current ratio is equal to, let's see the current assets in the balance sheet. We have stock, debtors, cash and bank balance. So all the three, 1,50,000 is the stock, that's 2,50,000 is the debtors, plus 1,50,000 is the cash and bank balance, divided by the current liabilities. There's only one current liability, that is creditors, so that is 2 lakh rupees. Current ratio is equal to 2.75 is to 1. That means your assets are 2.75 times higher than your liabilities. Or if your liability is 1 rupee, your asset is 2 rupees 75 paise. So your current ratio is very good. Your assets are more than your liabilities. The next ratio that they had asked is the quick ratio. The formula for quick ratio is quick assets or liquid assets divided by current liabilities minus bank overdraft. If we take bank overdraft, we minus it. If it is not given, they have not taken, then it will be 0 only. So we have to find the quick assets. Now quick assets are the assets which all the current assets except stock and prepaid expenses. So quick ratio is equal to, we have to leave the stock only here because we don't have any other prepaid expenses or anything given. So except stock, we can take debtors and cash and bank balance. So debtors 2,50,000 plus cash and bank balance 1,50,000 divided by the current liabilities, which is only creditors, which is 2 lakh. So you will get quick ratio as 2:1. So these are the first two ratios. Next we'll see what they've asked. They've asked you to find the operating ratio. So operating ratio we have done previously also. It is nothing but the operating expense ratio. If it is profit, they will mention clearly operating profit ratio. But here only operating ratio means operating expense ratio, which I had told you the formula is cost of goods sold plus operating expenses divided by sales into 100. So cost of goods sold plus operating expenses divided by sales into 100 is the formula. So we have to see what all information we have. Look at the question. We have profit and loss account. Instead of giving you cost of goods sold, they have given you opening stock, closing stock, purchases. So the formula for cost of goods sold we will use, and we'll find the cost of goods sold value. Then we have to see other operating expenses, which is nothing but the selling and distribution and administrative expenses. We shouldn't be taking the financial expenses because those are not operating expenses. That is the interest that has to be paid, which goes in the financing part, loan and interest and all that. So operating is only administrative, selling and distribution, office expense, factory expense, all those. So let's use, first let's find the cost of goods sold. So cost of goods sold equals to opening stock plus purchases minus closing stock of goods sold equals to opening stock given in the question 2,50,000 plus purchases 10,50,000 plus direct expenses also we take, but nothing is given in the question, so I'm not taking it here, minus closing stock 1,50,000. So if we solve this equation, we get 11,50,000 as cost of goods sold. So operating ratio is equals to cost of goods sold is 11,50,000 plus other operating expenses, which is selling and distribution expense 1 lakh and administrative expense 2,30,000. Remember, we never take the finance expense except the finance expense. What all else is given, we can take those, divided by sales. The value of sales we'll find out. 18 lakh is what is sales given in the question here. Sales 18 lakh into 100. This entire thing is multiplied by 100. Cost of goods sold plus operating expenses divided by sales. Entire equation you multiply by 100 to get the answer in percentage. Operating ratio is equal to 82.22%. Out of 100% sales, 82.22% is the operating cost, and the remaining will be the non-operating costs as well as the profits. The next question, three questions is finished. Three ratios we finished.
Ma'am,
Yeah,
is operating cost involve both, ma'am, direct or indirect expenses?
direct we take it in cost of goods sold. Here, no, in the cost of goods
Right.
sold equation, we take direct
Okay,
there,
ma'am.
so it comes there, and indirect we are taking here.
Okay, ma'am.
Next, they have asked us to find stock turnover ratio. So the fourth ratio is stock turnover ratio. Stock turnover ratio is equal to cost of goods sold divided by average stock. Okay, so we'll find cost of goods sold in the previous formula of operating ratio we've already found. We'll first find the average stock now. The formula for average stock is opening stock plus closing stock divided by 2. If you look at your P&L account, you have the value of both. In the balance sheet, there is only closing stock given, but in the profit and loss account, they have given us the opening stock value and the closing stock value both. When it is given in the question, whether it's in P&L or balance sheet, if you have opening and closing both values, then you have to take the average of it in case of turnover ratios. So opening stock 2,50,000, closing stock 1,50,000 divided by 2 we have to do. Average stock is equals to opening 2,50,000 plus closing stock 1,50,000 divided by 2. If I do, I get the average stock, which is 2 lakh rupees. Stock turnover ratio is equals to cost of goods sold, which I have found in the above equation for operating stock, 11,50,000 I have got, divided by average stock, which is 2 lakh. If we divide it, we'll get the answer as 5.75 times. Remember, all the turnover ratios will be always in times. We are finding how many times the stock has turned over. That means we have converted the stock into goods sold and again bought the raw material, again converted. So 5.75 times in a year we have converted the raw material into goods, sold them, again bought the raw materials. So that was the cycle or the turnovers that we had. Next, they have asked you to find fixed asset turnover ratio. And they have asked debtors turnover ratio. Let's do the fixed asset turnover ratio. Fixed asset turnover ratio, the formula is net sales divided by asset. So we know the value of sales, which is given in the profit and loss account, which is 18 lakh rupees. And we'll see the fixed assets. We have two fixed assets, land and building 5 lakh and plant and machinery 2 lakh. So our fixed asset is 5 lakh plus 2 lakh, 7 lakh. And our sales given is 18 lakh. Fixed asset turnover ratio is equals to sales 18 lakh divided by fixed asset, land and building 5 lakh plus plant and machinery 2 lakh. If we solve it, that turnover ratio would be equal to 2.57 times. That means in a year we have turned over our fixed asset, or we have used our fixed asset 2.57 times to generate a sales of 18 lakh rupees. So fixed assets have been used 2.57 times fully or turned over fully so that we could generate a revenue of 18 lakh rupees. The next is debtors turnover ratio. Formula for debtors turnover ratio is credit sales divided by average trade receivables, you can say average debtors. Why we call it average trade receivables? So that we can take debtors and bills receivable both. Both are actually money that has to be received from the customers, but for few customers we give bills receivable and few only depending upon the bill given or receipt given it is decided. So if they give separately debtors and bills receivable, both we have to consider here. Otherwise we can only consider debtors if only debtors is given in the problem. So debtors turnover ratio is equal to credit sales. Now they have just given you the sales of 18 lakh. Out of that, how much is credit, how much is cash, we have no idea. So we cannot segregate or differentiate and assume on our own. So we take the entire sales as it is, because cash portion we don't know, and maybe the entire sales is the credit sales only. Then average trade receivables is nothing but average debtors and average bills receivable. If you look at the balance sheet, there is nowhere bills receivable given, only debtors are given, and we don't have opening debtors and closing debtors like we had opening stock and closing stock. It was easy to find the average. We added both and divided by 2. But here we have only one debtor's value, so we cannot take this and divide by 2. We have to take 2,50,000 as it is, because we don't have the opening value, we cannot find the average. So whatever is the debtor's value, we take it as it is. If they would have given 2 years data, then previous years I would have taken opening debtors, this year I would have taken closing debtors. So we could have got average, but there is only 1 year data and nothing is mentioned about opening debtors. So we're taking only 2 lakh rupees, which is given as 2,50,000, which is given as debtors. So if we solve, if we divide it, we get the debtors turnover ratio as 7.2 times. So in the total sales of 18 lakhs, 7.2 times I have sold goods on credit and received money. So 7.2 times customers have taken goods and paid back, again taken and again paid back. So that many times the debtors have turned over. The last ratio asked is net profit to capital employed. The formula for this is net profit divided by capital employed into 100. Now how to find the capital employed? Capital employed is nothing but how much money we have invested in the business. So it includes shareholders fund, all the long-term funds, shareholders funds, how much shareholders have put, plus long-term debt or loans. Both if we add, we will get the capital employed value. So let's look at the question and see what all they have given. Shareholders fund, in the previous problem I told you it's nothing but equity share capital plus reserves plus profit and loss account. So let's see the balance sheet. On the liability side, we have share capital 5 lakh, reserves 4 lakh, profit and loss 1,50,000. So we'll add all these three to get the shareholders fund. So capital 5 lakh plus four lakh reserves plus 1,50,000 P&L account, plus the long term loans are 0 because this is long term loan. Okay. It is 0 because there is nothing given about debentures or loans or secured loans. And this what we added 3, these are our shareholders funds. That is equity capital plus reserves plus P&L account. All the 3 I added to get the shareholders funds. So there's no loan or liability, long-term liability given. 10,50,000 is the capital employed. Creditors we cannot take because that's for shorter duration. We just need the capital employed. Capital is always for longer duration. So let's calculate net profit to capital employed ratio. Net profit, we'll see how much it is in the question. In the P&L account, we'll find it. Net profit is 3,50,000. 3,50,000 net profit divided by capital employed is 10,50,000 into 100. profit to capital employed is equal to 33.33%. So this is the last ratio that was asked. Let's go to the next problem. I'll finish the last two sums, 12th and 13th, so that in the next class we can start with the cash flow statement. In the 12th question, they just asked you two things. They've asked you to find the return on capital employed and return on net worth. Return on capital employed is nothing but the above formula, net profit to capital employed, or you can say whatever profit is given, EBIT, profit after tax, using that we find the return on capital employed and return on net worth. Okay, so let's first start with the return on capital employed equal to EBIT divided by capital employed into 100. Okay, so let's see what all is given in the question. Return on capital employed equals to, we want EBIT, here we have profit before tax. So we have EBT, but we want EBIT. So first is to find the EBIT. Maybe I'll just find EBIT for you first. EBIT is equals to profit before tax plus interest. If I do, I'll get the EBIT. So profit before tax is given as 140 plus, I have to see what is the interest. Here you have 15% long-term loan on 300 rupees. We have to pay 15% interest for long-term loan. So loan 300 into 15% interest on that. If I calculate, I'll get the value of interest. So 15% of 300 see how much you get. 10% is 30. 45 is it?
Yes, ma'am.
So 140 plus 45, your EBIT will be 185. So we have our EBIT now, that is 185 divided by, we need the capital employed. Capital employed, I have told you in the previous thing also, whatever is the shareholders funds plus the long-term loan. So here we have shareholders funds as equity capital 200 plus general reserves 156 plus investment allowance reserves 50, whatever reserves we have, all the reserves we will take. So this is our shareholders funds plus long-term loan. So we have 15% long-term loan, which is the amount is 300. So capital employed is equity capital plus long-term loan. Both we have to add and we get the capital employed. Into 100 we have to do. This entire thing we will solve and multiply it with 100 so that we get the percentage. Return is always taken into percentage. So return on capital employed is equals to, we solve this, we take it as 26.2%. Next, they have asked you return on net worth. Net worth is nothing but only shareholders funds, not the long-term loans or anything. The net worth basically means what is the worth of the owner in the business, or what is the value of the shareholders in the business, how much do they own, or how much is their part or their contribution in the business. So it is also called as net worth. It is also called as shareholders funds. It is also called as shareholders capital. the different names for it. So when the word net worth comes, you have to remember only shareholders' funds we have to consider. Now return on net worth is similar like the above problem. We have to take okay, we want return on net worth. So we want return on equity basically. So we will take profit available to equity divided by shareholders funds, or you can also write divided by net worth, because net worth is nothing but the shareholders funds, because we are finding return on net worth, that is only for equity, so we are taking profit only for equity. So profit available to equity, how do we find? We have profit before tax, that is 140. From this we will minus tax. They've given you provision for tax, that is 84 rupees. So minus 84. And from this we have to minus preference dividend. It is not given. There is proposed dividend, that is for equity shareholders. And there no preference share capital also if you look at the entire problem. So this is 0. It's not given. So here instead of net worth, I'll write first. We are finding profit available to equity. So whatever is the profit before tax, from that I minus tax and minus preference dividend. So 140 minus 84 minus 0, I get it as 56. So this is the return of equity shareholders. So return on net worth is equals to 56, which is the profit available to equity, divided by shareholders funds or net worth. So shareholders funds is 200 equity capital plus general reserves 156 plus investment allowance reserves 50. We are not taking loans and any other liability, only equity funds, that is equity capital, reserves and profit and loss account if it was given. So these three things are given. In 200 we have to do this entire equation. So we get the returns in percentage. The formula also write it as into 100. We'll solve this and get the return on net worth. That is 13.79%. So if you see return on capital employed, entire capital, it was 26.2%, but return on net worth is 13.79%. That means only for equity, if we see returns, they are getting 13.79%. For the entire firm, if you see the returns, it is 26.2%. Now the last sum, we'll do it fast. Only few things asked. 13th one, they've asked the gross profit ratio, current ratio, liquid ratio, and return on investment ratio. So let's first start with the gross profit ratio. Gross profit ratio, the formula itself says that we have to do profit divided by sales into 100. So gross profit divided by sales into 100. So gross profit ratio is equals to, we'll see the gross profit the trading in P&L account. They've not given the gross profit value. We can find it out. Let's see how to find the gross profit. You can write here. Gross profit is equal to sales minus. You can take it two ways. Sales minus cost of goods sold. is cost of goods sold? Cost of goods sold is opening stock. So in cost of goods sold, we basically take everything of the trading account. Opening stock plus purchases plus direct expenses if we have given minus closing stock. So if you see, I'm taking opening, closing, direct expense and purchases, everything. So if I minus that from sales, I'll get the gross profit. So first we'll find the cost of goods sold. Opening stock is 9,050. Purchases is 54,525. Opening stock 9,050 plus purchases 54,525 plus we'll see if there are any direct expenses. If you see here, you have carriage inwards. Carriage inward, we take it as direct expense. We take it in the trading account, not in the P&L account. So if it was only carriage or carriage outwards, it was indirect. But because it is inward, it's a direct expense. All other things are indirect expenses, office, sales, finance. Okay, so we'll take only carriage inward, 1,425. Here, direct expense minus closing stock we have to do. The closing stock value they've given here, it is 14,000 rupees. So we'll take it. Solve this equation, we'll get the cost of goods sold. I'll call it as COGS, cost of goods sold. Anybody can just see how much of the thing? Just check how much you get, cost of goods sold. So just see one second. 9,050 plus 54,525 plus 1,425 minus 14,000.
Ma'am, 51,000.
51,000 is the cost of goods sold. So we can now find the gross profit. Gross profit is equal to sales minus cost of goods sold. So which is equal to, let's go up and see how much is the sales is 85,000. 85,000 minus cost of goods sold 51,000. So your gross profit will be 34,000. Now we can find the gross profit ratio. Equals to gross profit 34,000 divided by sales 85,000 into 100.
40, ma'am.
That's 40%. Was the first thing that was asked. Next they have asked and the current ratio and then the liquid ratio. Current ratio equals to current assets divided by current liabilities. Current ratio is equals to, let's see what are the current assets that we have. Stock in trade, debtors, bills receivable and bank balance. These are the current assets. Let's take all of them. Stock in trade is 14,000 plus debtors plus. These are the current assets divided by current liabilities. Current liabilities is bank overdraft 3,000, creditors 10,000. 8 plus 2 both put together 10,000 for expense and for others. So bank overdraft 3,000 and creditors 10,000. 3 plus 10, 13,000. These are our current liabilities. So current ratio will be 1.92:1. We have asked liquid ratio, which is liquid assets or quick assets divided by current liabilities minus bank overdraft. If we take bank overdraft, we have to minus it, otherwise we can just skip it, take all other expenses. So liquid ratio is equals to, in the current assets we have to leave stock and take everything else. So let's see. So if I leave stock 14,000, I can take debtors 7, bills receivable 1, and bank balance 3. So 7 plus 1 plus 3, 7,000 divided by current liabilities minus bank overdraft. So we'll not take bank overdraft itself. We'll take only the creditors, that is 10,000. Or else you take 13,000 minus 3,000, which is again 10,000. So liquid ratio is equals to 1.11. See what is the next that they have asked. Last one, it is return on investment ratio. Return on investment ratio equal to EBIT divided by capital employed. This is also called it as. So we'll see how to find the EBIT first. Let's see what's given in the P&L account. In the P&L account, you have net profit 15,000, but we want EBIT. So we'll take 15,000 net profit plus we'll add back the interest. Okay, because in the net profit, if you look at the P&L account, there are no taxes that are deducted here. You look at all the expenses. You have carriage inward, office expense, sales expense, finance expense, and loss on sale of asset. So no taxes. That means net profit is earning before tax. We want to add back interest and make it earning before interest and tax. This financial expense that is given is the interest amount that we have to consider, because as I had told you earlier also, financial expense is nothing but the interest on loan that you are paying. It's related to from where you're getting funds and how interest you're paying. So this 1500 we have to add back so that we can make net profit as EBIT. So interest is 1500, which is the financial expense which is given. So 15,000 plus 1500, if I do 16,500 is the EBIT. Now capital employed. Capital employed, I had told you, is shareholders funds plus long term debt or long term loans. So let's see what is the capital employed. Into 100 we have to do in the main formula. So capital employed, share capital 20,000, reserves 9,000, P&L 6,000. These three things we will take. Bank overdraft and creditors are short term or their current liabilities, which we will not take. So we don't have long term loan, but in share capital we have shareholders funds, we have capital 20,000, reserves 9,000, and P&L 6,000. So 20 plus 9 plus 6. We get the capital employed as 30. 35. Okay. So return on capital employed equals to EBIT 16,500 divided by 35,000 into 100. You get it as 47.14%. This was the last sum on ratio analysis.
Ma'am, that is return on investment ratio.
Okay. So return on investment. Return on investment or return on capital employed is one and the same. So how much are we investing or how much capital are we putting? Okay, so they mention the word investment, so we'll write it as investment. So this was the last problem on ratio analysis. Okay. If you have any doubts, you can ask.